always have it.
Hello and thanks for joining us on the program. I'm Dennis Adigunloye. Matters of security have dominated public discourse in recent times. However, it is not all doom and gloom, as alluded to by Senate President Ahmed Lawan, who in the week had a high-level engagement with President Muhammadu Buhari on successes recorded so far in the fight against insurgency and the need to keep up the tempo.
I'm happy to inform Nigerians that Mr. President has shown willingness and the desire to continue to give more resources to armed forces and other security agencies to continue to fight the banditry, the little bits of the insurgency left, and of course the other security challenges. And we are also fully in support of giving him all the resources that he will require from us in the National Assembly to ensure that the lives and property of Nigerians are properly secured. And before this administration leaves, by the grace of God, in 2023, the security situation would have been stabilized.
And on how to deal with insurgent members who recently surrendered to authorities, the Senate President was unequivocal in his opinions.
I don't subscribe to the idea of saying forget about people who are surrendering, all of them are criminals and the rest of it. What we need to do is to have a clearly defined national policy on how we deal with this, to ensure that everybody is sanitized, so to speak, before they are introduced into the society.
Discussions also focused on the 2022 appropriations bill currently in the pipeline.
The budget 2022 will be the icing on the cake, so to speak. That is to say that we have to make sufficient provisions for our legacy projects. Our desire now is in tandem with what the presidency wants. That is to ensure that the legacy projects like the Second Niger Bridge, the Abuja, Kaduna, Kano highway, and so on and so forth, are completed by next year, by the grace of God, and Mr. President is able to commission them for Nigerians to benefit.
And following the recent assent of the petroleum industry bill by President Muhammadu Buhari, Senate President Ahmed Lawan responded to what he called baseless, unfounded and mischievous allegations that presiding officers of the National Assembly were bribed to pass the 3% allocation for host communities in the Petroleum Industry Act.
I really want to take this opportunity to take exceptions to those kind of unwarranted, unprovable, false and fake information being fed to the Nigerian public. And the danger people will face with this is you cause unnecessary damage to the reputation of people. In the National Assembly, our focus is Nigeria. Our priority is Nigeria. We have no personal interest in anything. What will make Nigeria better is what concerns us. At the end of the day, we will have a date with history, and we want to be on the right side of history.
just like we did elsewhere in the South-South, they should be reintegrated. But first, they have to go some level of debriefing. Okay, because I assume that in the Boko Haram enterprise, they went through some form of radicalization. So we have to take that away from them, make them realize that they are now members of the civil society. Otherwise, some of them may stray and still go back to their old ways. Okay, I don't have any problems with even trying to resettle them. Maybe take them to some camp, let them learn some trade, so that they'll come out. And because in the first place, some of the analysts said, oh, they went into Boko Haram bosom because of poverty. So if there's any way you can set up some camps, teach them some trade so that they'll be of use to the society. Otherwise, when they come back and they become idle after some time, they may relapse. Okay, so the policy should be that of resettling them, debriefing them, and if possible, finding something for them in terms of trade or something, and even start up capital. Otherwise, they will relapse and society will be the worse for it. We saw what we are going through as a result of Boko Haram. So, and again, in the process of debriefing, the military, the security people can even have enough information to crush the remaining ones who are recalcitrant. No, certainly at once I would reject that. We are not living in the Stone Age. If in the process of fighting Boko Haram in the field, some get killed, it's natural. But once they have turned in their weapons and killed them, that becomes a human rights abuse, and I can't sit here for once even think along those lines. They shouldn't. My take is what I just said. We can rehabilitate them in some form. That would be better for society. If you kill any one of them, you are sure that those who are considering throwing in the towel will certainly not, because they will know they will face the same fate. So that is nothing. I will not for once go along with that. Of course, by surrendering, they are telling the society that what they were doing was not right. That's why they are coming back from that lifestyle. So let them know that that is wrong. And well, how do you ensure that they don't come back? That is where the suggestion of trying to find some form of startup capital for them after training them, so that they get into. You can see what happened in the Niger Delta. I'm not suggesting that they should be perpetually put on some form of amnesty fund like it's happening there, but at least that could even be an inspiration to others who are still there fighting the nation. Okay, if we come back, we'll be resettled. I'm sure some of them are more or less like victims themselves, because I know sometimes they are abducted and taken there and given some form of some heavy misinformation stuff, and they start fighting, and sometimes they even kill their own people. But if they see that those who have surrendered are being treated well, I think they will reconsider their ways. Well, I know it's very difficult, coming back to see those who killed your people, but it's hard, but it's the fact of life. If you bring them back and debrief them and give them the kind of support, I think when they become meaningful to society, even the victims will feel better than knowing that these people are out there. They could come again and wreak havoc on the society. I know it's not something you just sit and in one sentence or two sentences find a solution to, but that's the way I look at it. It's not easy, but you just have to treat them like human beings in order to give them back their confidence as people who can live in society.
And on the Petroleum Industry Act, the Senate Presidents recently engaged President Muhammadu Buhari on the milestone achievement.
Everybody in the National Assembly, in both the Senate and House, from all parts of Nigeria, work for the bill to be passed. This is one bill that will benefit Nigeria as a country and benefits its people. Our states will have more revenues, our local governments will have more funds, and of course what we expect is that these revenues will be translated into actionable projects that will make life better for Nigerians. The host communities have been specifically mentioned, and these funds will go there. This time around, there should be no excuses for anybody to tamper with this money.
Let's stay with the Petroleum Industry Act, as the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Niger Delta Affairs, Senator Ita Enang, gave a breakdown of some of the key and potentially contentious issues in the Act and how this should not be allowed to escalate into unnecessary rancor.
This week witnessed monumental developments in Nigeria's history, with the executive and legislature finally breaking the jinx of several years. We now have the Petroleum Industry Act. What can you say firstly about the collaboration between the executive and the legislative arms of government to getting Nigeria to this point?
Let me commend the leadership of His Excellency the President, His Excellency the Vice President, and the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources in getting this bill passed. And the kind of collaboration that we had between the executive and the legislature in terms of the input and total working. I congratulate them, and I congratulate the government. And I want to say that to the people of the Niger Delta and the people of Nigeria, the governors and all that, that yes, no law can ever be perfect. So we have the law as it is now. We just have to see and try to see the implementation. It is the implementation of it that will give us an idea as to areas of challenges and the area that we need to look and try to amend if becomes necessary. But I see this bill as going to be the one, I see this act as being going to be one of the most challenging in the history of this country. And it's going to open a lot of legal frontiers in the courts. And it's capable of challenging a lot of situations in the Niger Delta. Is going to be very challenging to the economy of Nigeria. In fact, it's most challenging to the economy of Nigeria. Why? Because when you look at the parcellation of funds to the different sectors, you'll be tempted to say that not much money will be left for the federation account to share between the federal government, the state government, and the local government. Because the NNP, the way different interpretation is likely to be given is that NNPC and whatever it takes, it belongs to NNPC. And there is one that is very concerning, not just the host communities funds, which brought serious problem in the 2011-2015 legislative year, legislative period in the Senate, the host communities fund. Now it is the Frontier Exploration Fund. The Frontier Exploration Fund, by the way Mr. President sent to the National Assembly, read like this. I read. It is contained in National Assembly Journal number 47 of 29 September 2020, which is the Gazette of the bill as sent by Mr. President. The President sent to the National Assembly as follows. That is Section 9, Clause 9, Sub-Clause 4 says, the Frontier Exploration Fund shall be 10% of the rents on petroleum prospecting licenses and petroleum mining leases. That is 10% of the rents on petroleum prospecting licenses and petroleum mining leases. And what the National Assembly has passed now reads as follows. They shall be maintained for the purpose of this section, a Frontier Exploration Fund, which shall be 30% of NNPC Limited's profit, oil and gas, as in the production sharing, profit sharing, and risk service contract. Now, the question that has arisen in the legislative circle, in the legal circle, in the Niger Delta, And for the federation account, the question that has arisen for the federal government, the state government, and the local government, which are partakers of the federation account, is if you give 30% of NNPC's profit in oil, NNPC's profit in gas, to the Frontier Exploration Fund, how much remains for the federation account to share between the federal government, state government, and local government? And what the federal government relies 81% on money from oil to fund its budget after it has been shared to the federal government. What it gives to you, the humanitarian, for works, for power, for education, for foreign affairs, and all that, comes from oil. So if you give 30% of the profit, and when do you determine profit? Is it after the payment to the federation account that you now determine what profit is? So it's going to give a lot of problems. And I think it will have to be revisited, because it is going to give so much litigation, so much challenge. And don't forget, right now, much of what we have been having as tax on by Federal Inland Revenue Service, as we call it, internal generated, there were about 80 to 85% oil dependent, because it is what you get from oil that you syndicate to the different ministries. The ministries will use that to award contracts. From those contracts, you will now say you have generated tax and VAT, although VAT is now challenged. Now, because a lot of the provisions in this act says that the inland revenue, or they are tax exempt. So we'll have to go back to, we don't have to go back to where we were. We'll have to go and do a lot of examination. Thank God His Excellency Mr. President has set up an implementation committee and has made inland revenue part of it, and has made a Minister of Finance, the Minister of Petroleum, and all of them. Now, and NNPC, I think we may have to look, this committee will have to look again at the challenges that has been posed by this. And it is very challenging, and I don't want to word the youth, but on my part, as a senior special assistant to the president of Niger Delta, I am engaging with the communities. I have engaged with, I'm going to engage with PANDEF. We've had an appointment with PANDEF now, Pan Niger Delta Forum, and all the youth groups and all the community groups to that they have agreed to have conference with me, so that we can look at, explore peace. I mean, we've agreed on peace, then we look at what their concerns are, and we take it up to this committee and to the this thing. There's not going to be any violent challenge. There's not going to be. We want to reduce the number of verbal attacks, verbal protestations that rises from discontent, all that. It is a law now. It is no more conjecture. We made all the communities, and PANDEV made their presentations at the National Assembly. When you make your presentation to the legislature, when they're considering a law, when they finally pass the law, you are bound by it, and you can only either seek for amendment or seek court interpretation or striking it down. I see this leading to a lot of litigations in court, and if you have challenge, you can approach the court for interpretation or something. The Governors Forum are going to have issues. The Federation Account Allocation Committee are going to have issues. Those issues have already arisen. Let us take it only as a legal matter, a constitutional matter, and approach it with the candor of managing a bill that we have some reservation, managing an act in which we have reservations about.
Well, I look at it from the point of stability in terms of people who are coming in to invest. You know, when you are investing in a sector that has rules, you know, then you know how you play within the rules. I believe that in that sector now, as people are coming in, you know, they know there is laws and principles to guide their activities. And I believe that will improve foreign investment in that sector.
And in terms of, you all talk about Nigeria having an abundance of laws, it's always the implementation that poses a challenge. With this Petroleum Industry Act, how do you see it playing out in terms of implementation and the beneficiaries, such as those communities, getting what is due to them?
Well, you can appreciate that, yes, we develop policies easily, but the implementation has been a problem. But not on this highest scale sector. This is a global sector, and you don't play in it anyhow.
All right, thank you for that. What would you say about, how the Petroleum Industry Bill, as it was then before it became law, has languished in the National Assembly for decades? It's gone through successive assemblies. So what can you say about the 9th Senate and 9th National Assembly in general in terms of what they've managed to achieve in breaking the jinx, so to say?
Well, I want to join to congratulate them that finally the bill has been passed. But even though the bill is passed, there's dissatisfaction within both communities as to what they will get and all that. But I'm glad that the bill has been passed, and I want to congratulate the 9th Senate for doing that.
Now, issues surrounding the welfare of the aged was explored recently, and Senate 109 was able to engage with Senator Eze Ajoku, who is passionate about catering for the elderly in society.
Older Persons Rights and Privilege Bill, which we crafted, and it became a personal bill for the senator, has been passed at the Senate and is now awaiting concurrence in the House of Representatives. I knew when they read it for the first reading, I do not know what stage it is now, but it is something that we're very passionate about because it addresses the issues affecting the older persons in Nigeria. Hitherto, there's no legal framework for the older persons in this country, and that was the first attempt to provide a legal framework for older persons, against which organizations like my Coalition of Societies for the Rights of Older Persons can advocate upon, because in it defines some rights and privileges for older persons, just like people who are in civilized climes.
All right, so it's quite appropriate that you're talking about this issue now. Today is World Humanitarian Day, a day that's set aside by the United Nations to draw attention to the plight of vulnerable groups such as the aged. And so what can you tell us about World Humanitarian Day and how this can all fit into your aspirational focus?
Well, it addresses issues of vulnerable persons. You talk about vulnerable persons in terms of those living with disabilities, some children in some areas, some women in some areas, but more especially the older persons, because there are a lot of older persons who don't have any support at all. It's true when you talk about older persons, people may relate it to the older persons in the cities, but we're not discussing the older persons mainly in the cities, but in the rural areas where a lot of older persons domicile. My mother, for example, is 103 and he lives in the village, and she lives in the village. And around her are her mates who may not have a son or a daughter who will be of help to them, meaning that at this type of time they are abandoned. And you know, abandonment, isolation kills a lot of people, and that's what they are going through. So in celebrating this World Humanitarian Day, we are focused on this group of people who have no one to help them, and we are trusting that on a day like this, both government and civil societies should do a lot more to reach out to these people. For us in the coalition, this morning we had a discussion, and we had people come in on a consultative topic which we are trying to push, because when you look at the situation now, we find that there are no opportunities for people to speak out for the vulnerable class, and that we plan to continue to do.
Well, that concludes the program for this week. Thanks for watching. I am Dennis at Digunlui. See you next week.